good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is. It's good to be here. It's good to be together with family. So we're continuing on our series about the end is coming, but not quite yet. And we're continuing on through Thessalonians. We finished First Thessalonians last week, and we're heading into Second Thessalonians. We'll finish that off, and then see where we're going from there. But change is hard, right? It's something we all talk about. It's something I know Jenny struggles with, not the rest of us, but Jenny struggles with it. Okay, we're light now. We can lighten up, okay? But I was thinking about change this week, and one of those thoughts that jumped into my head is about the way some things have changed, and some things that we might not think about all that much. When I was in the service, communication was really hard. Being overseas, you couldn't communicate like you can today. If you wanted to find out what was going on at home, you sat down and you wrote a letter and put a couple stamps on it and mailed it, and it took a week and a half, 2 weeks to get home, and then they wrote a letter and they mailed it, and it took about 2 weeks to get back. So you're finding out stuff sometimes a month or a couple months in arrears. And if you're like my family, I wasn't really great because I didn't like to sit down and write letters, to be honest with you. I wasn't really great at writing. So I tried other things, but it just didn't work. But you couldn't just send like today, even like we do for our media and stuff. There's text messages that go out. There's instant communication. If you picked up, you could just pull the phone out of your pocket and contact somebody. I mean, phone calls when I was overseas, you had to either get in a bus or get a ride and drive to a specific location, which was quite a ways away, where servicemen would all gather and line up to make what you guys might even not even know what it is anymore, a collect phone call.
Yeah.
Remember collect phone calls? You didn't know what a collect phone call is. And that's okay. That's okay. It's just a sign of the times, but that's the way I had to make phone calls. I'd call and collect, and they had, I'll pay for the charges, and if they were pissed off at you, they said, no, I won't pay for the charges. They hung up, but it's the way it was. Nowadays, man, we got our cell phones ring too much, don't they? Those darn robocalls. I mean, we're learning how to block calls faster than we are to answer them. And text messaging, that's probably the preferred way of communication for most people. It's different. It's just change happens. And just as a side note, sitting down to write a letter was setting aside time to sit down and find paper and find a pen and an envelope and start to write a letter. And when your hand got tired, put the pen down and try and catch up on everything. It's not like it is today. You boot up a computer, you type a few lines, and you zap off a message to somebody, and they get it within a few minutes. But that's just one minor change that we deal with. And I'm bringing this up for a specific reason. You'll see me go kind of around the block to get back to here, but just remember we talked about change, okay? I'm here because I want to encourage you today. This is what I want today to be about encouragement, to let you know that that when there are changes in life, there's hope, there's help, and we're going to go to that quote that you wanted to find. I hope you found it, Jen. You didn't find it.
I found it.
Okay. This is something that doesn't change, but our attitude about it has to change. And I bring this up to say this: we need to encourage you. I want to tell you this: define yourself as one beloved by God. Define yourself radically as one beloved by God. This is the true self. Every other identity is an illusion. God's love for you is His choice of you, and God's love for you and His choice of you constitute your worth. Accept that and let it become the most important thing in your life. That's a quote from Brennan Manning. He's my favorite author. It's a quote from one of his books called Abba's Child, the cry of the heart for an intimate belonging. Our choices, you know this because we've all got a little bit of life experience, right? Our choices today in the same circumstance or the same situation are a little different than they were in the past. When I was younger, I'd be in a similar situation, maybe what I'm in today, and I'd make a different choice because I have more life experience, because things have changed. But the choices we make, the action we take, are a result of the way that we view ourselves or the way we see ourselves. What we believe about ourselves is seen in our interactions with each other. Now, I'm going to ask a real hard question here. Who's been in love? Can you remember what it was like to be that when you were first in love, that giddy feeling that you were just so, everything was great and nothing could happen. A building could fall on your head and it wouldn't even affect you because you're in love and everything is perfect, everything's beautiful. Didn't matter what was happening, you were excited, you anticipated the next moment, the next phone call. Every time the phone rang, you thought it was that person, that other person, that special person. Man, it was thrilling, wasn't it? But see, we can have that same kind of experience when we realize this, that we're radically loved by God. We can have that. We can hold on to that. We can be thrilled like that. You see, the creator of the universe, the Lord God Almighty, he loves us without condition or reservation. And see, that understanding when times gets hard, when we're facing rough circumstances, it brings peace. That it brings hope. See, choices that we make, expectations we have, they run our lives. They really do. Ron and I, my brother and I, talk a lot about living expectation free. And, that's really hard because we do have expectations. We live by expectations. I expect when I get on the road and I'm driving down the street that people are going to follow the laws. And I get so irate when people are intentionally breaking the laws. I don't know if you feel this way, but I think today a yellow light and a red light are just suggestions. I see people running them all the time, and it just drives me crazy. I see people weaving in and out of traffic and driving recklessly, and I'm thinking, what right do they have to put me at risk by their poor choice? But see, I have an expectation when I get behind the wheel that people are going to follow the rules. Sorry? Did I do that?
No, I did that.
Okay. So, in life we can choose. In life we can choose what we're gonna focus on, what we're gonna think. See, I choose to love. I'm gonna choose joy no matter what. And it is a choice. Henry Nouwen, an author, a spiritual leader, he was a priest. He said this, he said, joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy and keep choosing it every day. It's a choice based on the knowledge that we belong to God and we have found in God our refuge and our safety, and that nothing, not even death, can take God away from us. Once we understand that we have this deep intimacy with God, this deep connection with the Lord, it changes our perspective. It changes the way we view things. And we can, in the difficulty, in the days when life doesn't make sense, we can still choose to say, I can find a reason to be happy. I can find a reason to find what is good. I can find a reason to look at what is right. See, people today want to talk about their problems. How many times you walk into a situation or circumstance you haven't seen anybody and you start hearing about their problems? I know because I live in a senior park. Everybody wants to talk about their health woes. Oh, when you're getting old, it seems that all people want to talk about is, it aches and it pains and, and I'm not trying to make fun of that. I'm trying to say it's because that thing is right in front of us. And whether we're having health woes or financial issues or relationship problems or something has totally gone awry, we can still choose how we're going to respond to it. We can still choose joy. We can choose to understand that we're loved. Or we can choose to focus on problems. Now today, one of the things that's popular, one of the things that's going on, one of the places we've been dwelling here, and like I've told you in the past, we're dwelling here I brought us here because we're talking a little bit about end times, and we're doing that on Wednesday nights, we're talking about Revelation, but end times is a popular topic, especially in the church. When we began this series, I made a statement that people are looking for answers, and that's why it's such a popular topic. That hasn't changed, and it won't ever change. Back in 1970, Hal Lindsey, great Christian leader, wrote a book called The Late Great Planet Earth. It was about the rapture, the Antichrist, and the second coming. He followed up that book with another prophetic book called Satan is Alive and Well on the Planet Earth. And by 1980, he followed it up with a third book. He said in 1980, he wrote the book, The 1980s, The Countdown to Armageddon. This was all based on the thought that once Israel became a nation in 1948, a generation wouldn't pass away before the Lord returned. So this caused churches, this caused Christians to think that by 1988, God was coming back. The second coming was going to happen. And people began to act very weird, very different. They were selling property, they were closing doors, they were doing all kinds of stuff thinking God was coming back. Well, we're in 2019 today, where about almost whole another generation has passed away. And we're still here. But it doesn't change things. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of books on the end times. Today there's popular books like The Last Hour, an Israeli insider looks at the end. That's by an author that Jenny happens to know. Amir
Sephardi.
Yeah, Sephardi. Yeah. There's another book that's very popular called The Paradigm, the ancient blueprint that holds the mystery of our times. And these are just the top three that I pulled up. And here's one, The Tyrant, The Rise of the Beast, The Chronicles of Beast One. These are just some of the best sellers that are going around talking about the end times, and it's happening, and we got to be aware, and all these things are happening. These books, these kind of things, they incite us to actions and behaviors. Now, maybe you're wondering why I've jumped to this place when I was talking about change. I've been talking about peace and love and all those things. Well, this is why I jumped into this, and this is what I want to tell you. These books can make us distracted. They can take our focus away from what's important. We can forget about love and joy being the choice that we need to maintain. In Romans 12:2, it tells us to renew our mind and to not be conformed by the world. These are great reminders that being a Christian isn't about focusing on the end times. It's about developing a deeply intimate connection with the Lord God. It's about understanding that our faith makes us part of God's family. And the other part of that is this, that invitation, that connection is available to everybody. And our responsibility is to live out that joy, live out that love so people can see that. See, living each day is living in faith. We need to allow ourselves to be refreshed by God's radical love and not incensed by the things that are trying to distract us. Is God coming back? Is Jesus coming back? Okay, I've lost Joel. He's coming back. When? I don't know. Whenever God says it's time. When God tells Jesus, okay, it's time to go, Jesus is going to go. Change happens. That's a fact of life. But here's something that hasn't changed since Jesus left, that everybody's trying to predict the end times. See, and that's the problem that I see in the church, and here's the real crux of things. I believe as Christians we can be different. I believe that the church can change. I believe that the way we honor and glorify the Lord is to love and accept others with grace and mercy. You know, those things we've experienced. And I don't want to tear the church down. I'm not trying to tear the church down. I think we need to own our stuff. I think the best thing we can do is take responsibility of where we were and saying where we were is where we were, but that's not where we are now. You know, we've all made mistakes. Anybody in here not? I made a bunch this morning. I mean, honestly. And we need to own them. Just own them and say, hey, you know, I'm sorry. Let's move on. See, we have to, as believers, as Christians, we have to become different than we have been in the past. Judgments. Who has heard that people don't come to church because they've been judged? Who's left churches because they've been judged? You talk to people anymore, and there's a lot of people, oh yeah, I'm kind of interested in God, but I don't go to church because, Last church I was at, they judged me. Judgments are God's business. They're not mine. My business is to just love. My business is to be compassionate and kind. God's business is judgment. Criticisms. Who's been criticized? Yeah. Who's been criticized today? Yeah. You know, criticisms are Satan's business. That's what Satan does. In Revelation 12:9, it calls him the accuser of the brethren. It's a great reference to what Satan really does to tear us apart, to cause division. Rules and regulation reveal our need for help. Why did the law come? Why were the Ten Commandments given? To show us that we needed a Savior. And why are all these rules and regulations there today? Because they let us know that we need help. Jesus came to complete our path. He's the one that completes us. He's the one that gets us there. It says that in Matthew 5:17. Our choice as believers must become encouragement and support. Our duty must be love and compassion. And that's what I hope to encourage us to today. I'm approaching this in a little different way because as I read over this passage, I'm not doing this. It just spoke to me in a different way as far as bringing a message. So a lot of things are different about what I've done for the message today. But anyway, I want to bring us to a fresh perspective. And that's this. And I'll tell you, I'll take you there. I don't know if any of you, I'm a big reader. I don't know about you guys. I've always been a big reader. I remember we used to have contests in the summer. My mom would put us between my brothers and I about contests about reading books. And over the summer, that's when, we had the summer off. School goes kind of weird now, but when we had the summer off, I would read probably hundreds of books over the summer, and my brothers would maybe read 3. But I would pour through book after book after book. I've always been a reader. And here's the thing. We know in life that there's good and bad days, right? We all know that. We talk about that. In fact, in a classic novel, we can read this. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of belief. It was the epic of incredulity. It was a season of light. It was a season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. That's from The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. That was written hundreds of years ago. But it's really a thing about life and about faith and about understanding that we're going to face things. Our faith helps us in the moments of doubt and despair. And hearing that others are living by faith brings encouragement. It opens the door to possibility no matter what. That I can live by my faith in the middle of the moment that's before me. If I see somebody else doing it, I think, man, if they can do it, I should be able to too, right? And so when you hear somebody living by faith doing these amazing things, you're going, wow, they tie their shoes similar to the way I tie my shoes, or they wear flip-flops or whatever. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like me. So maybe I can do this too. Paul wrote to the church at Thessalonica in his second letter. This is what he wrote, and it's part of our text. In 2 Thessalonians 1, verse 3, this is what he wrote. We ought to thank God always for you, brothers and sisters, and rightly so, since faith is flourishing and the love each one of you has for one another is increasing. Paul's drawing attention to what is good, to what is right, to what is the positive things that are going on with the believers there. This church, remember, this church was being harassed, was being persecuted for their faith, and they were dealing with false teachings and with ideas that, the Lord was coming back and the people that were dead weren't going to get to go to heaven with him. And this was causing them problems. But he's writing in this second letter that he's seen growth in them, that in one way or another they were almost resembling a healthy church because they were loving each other. He says their love is increasing. Here's the thing that you need to know. It's right here. And none of you guys online can see it. No. It's right there. Faith flourishes when it's tested. It grows. It doesn't shrink. When your faith is tested, it grows. When people are coming at you, when they're trying to criticize you, when they're, you're dealing with judgments, when you can keep your focus on God and know that you're loved and accepted for who you are, your faith is going to grow. It's why that song that we played during worship, that song that's so popular today, it's all over the pop charts even, but by Lauren Daigle, You Say, it speaks so deeply to the heart of many people. It speaks so deeply to my heart that whatever, it's not what about anybody else says, it's about what you say. I feel bad about me, you say I'm good. I feel weak, you say I'm strong. It's about those things. And that line in there, the only thing that matters is what you think of me. We need to understand that. And when we can live by that, no matter what's going on, our faith is going to flourish. See, maturity and trust are the result of seeing the Lord God act and support us in our walk. Paul wrote to the church at Philippi, in Philippians 4, he says this, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these. Think about the things that are excellent and worthy of praise. What are you going to think about? Are you going to think about all the garbage that's going on, or you want to think about what's good? Man, there's some great things that are happening in life. I was talking with my brother the other day, and I just told him, man, life is so good. Is everything perfect? No. Is everything the way that I thought it would be? No. But life is good. Peace and joy are the result of what we choose to dwell on. Paul was honoring the Lord by encouraging the church and the good things that he had heard about them. He'd heard how their faith was growing, because remember, Paul didn't get there. Timothy went. Silas went. Paul didn't get there, and he's writing what he heard about their church because he was concerned about them. See? God was being honored, and in turn, he was causing growth. He was helping maturity to happen. We can focus on what is going wrong, or we can look beyond the appearances and find what is right. Choice. Choice, right? Who did Jesus criticize? Did he criticize the people that made mistakes? Did he criticize the people that were ill and sick? Did he criticize the people who were poor? Did he criticize the crowds when they followed him and they were hungry? Jesus criticized the religious. He was so critical of the Pharisees, of their hypocrisy, and he expressed his disapproval so many times so hard. But Jesus' criticisms were always truthful and ultimately loving. See, showing love and demonstrating compassion is the challenge that we live by. 1 Corinthians, I think I have that. Do I? Maybe I don't. I might not have. 1 Corinthians 13. You guys all know this. It's a famous chapter. It's a love chapter. It says this about love. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It is not boastful. It is not arrogant. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not irritable. And it does not keep a record of wrongs. Okay, I hear all those things about love and I think, man, I've messed up. Because I get irritated. I get self-seeking. I'm not all that patient all the time. But you know what? We're in process. We're getting better. So love is all those things. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. See, love is what it's all about. And if we can focus on living in love, and we can focus on loving and serving and helping, all those other things that are going on in life aren't really going to matter. In fact, the truth is you and I are examples. We're a living testimony. Jesus said in his prayer, in his intercessory prayer in John 17, in verse 18, he says this, as you sent me into the world, I've sent them. What does that mean? What does that mean? He sent us into the world. Why does he send us into the world? To be an example of his love. To tell people about God's love and God's grace. See? And people are looking. How many times have you heard me say you're being watched if you're a Christian? How many times have you heard me? I messed up the other day. I had a contractor at my house working on something, and something happened, and I said something inappropriate. And the guy knew I was a pastor. He says, hey, I heard you say this, and you're a pastor. And I said, yeah, I screwed up. I'm sorry, but people are looking. They're watching. When we fail, they will attribute our fail to a lack of faith or to a weak attitude. When we succeed, they'll say, oh, it's just luck, or he's working really hard. What's the real truth? God's there. He's helping us. He's supporting us. We know that. God's word brings us love, strength, power, and understanding. And it helps believers see that what we need each day in every circumstance to serve others and reveal God's love. Learning and understanding come from those mistakes we make. They come from the lessons of life. And too often we think that we, as trying to be Christian and trying to have the right focus, are thinking that the lessons are, we might be being attacked or whatever, and sometimes that's happening. That's true. But more often than not, our lessons are self-inflicted, our difficulties are self-inflicted. And we just need to be open to the lessons that there are, No matter what happens, whether it's expected or unexpected, there's something to be learned. There's growth that'll take place. Paul continues in this passage to the Thessalonians. He continues, he says this, he says, we're so proud of you. You're so steady and determined in your faith despite all the hard times that have come down on you. We tell everyone we meet in church, in all the churches around, about you. Man, what a report. Wouldn't you love to hear that people are just talking about your life and who you are because you're being so consistent and so faithful and so steady? Wouldn't you love it if that's what they were doing about us, about our church? I would. I just want to be faithful to what God's put in front of us. See, being steady is being determined to honor the Lord. However we're going to act, and it brings a good report. What Paul is saying is that this report, what he's heard from Timothy, from Silas, from the people that are around him about this church, it's an answer to prayer. You remember back in 1 Thessalonians 3 when we were talking about living simply and living rightly. Paul was praying for the church. He was saying, I'm praying for you guys because I know what's going on. This is the answer to his prayer. God is honored and glorified when we're loving others, when we're doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. And our actions and our attitudes become that answer to prayer. Have you ever known that in your life somebody was praying for you? I know this, the reason I stand here today is because when I was overseas, and even though I was behaving poorly, I wasn't living rightly, I wasn't doing those things, even though I knew who God was, and I was in the middle of all kinds of turmoil. I had a grandmother that prayed for me, and I still almost didn't make it back. Right before I was discharged, I was in a very severe auto accident that put me in the hospital for 5 months. And it probably should have killed me. But the reason I made it back, the reason I came back is because I know that I had a godly grandmother who prayed for me all the time. And she prayed me back here. And I believe that. I believe those kind of things happen. See, because we're going to face trials and persecutions. Things are going to happen. And you know what? If they're not happening now, they're gonna. And it's going to get worse. I really believe it's going to get a lot worse in the United States, and that's not too far out. Living faithful, standing firm, and remaining committed is the place where contentment happens. You want to be content? Man, just stand in your faith. That's all. Peace is the result, and maturity is the benefit. Here's the thing. We think we need to take huge steps, right? I got to part the Red Sea. That's the way I prove I'm paid now. It's that day in, day out. You know, I've been to churches all the time, and you get people to stand up and they give this testimony, and some of these testimonies are really, really heart-wrenching about what people have been through, and then they come through and, you know what, they came into this place where they encountered God, and now they've had a big change in life, and everybody applauds that. And, oh, that's what a great testimony. Those are marvelous things. Those are marvelous things that God does when we finally get to the end of our rope and come to the realization that we need the Lord. You want to know what, in my opinion, what a great testimony is? I've served God every day of my life, and it doesn't matter. I need Him, and I've served Him, and He loves me, and I've just been committed. That's a great testimony. That's somebody who really, really gets it. See? We can look at the hard times, we can dwell on difficulties, or we can choose in the best and most honest way we can to take steps to honor and glorify God by living faithful, by staying committed, by loving others. Recently, as I was preparing for this, I reread this thing, but I had read about this very unusual plant. You're going, wow, I'm going to end with a plant, right? I'm going to end with a plant story. There's some interesting facts about this plant. You want to flip to that really cool picture? It's called a sisal plant. It grows in the Yucatan. It flourishes there. It grows in very hard and unforgiving soil. A while ago, a group of Americans went down there and they discovered this plant and they thought, oh man, this is pretty awesome. Let's take some of it and let's get it back to the United States and we'll put it in some really good soil and it's going to flourish. And we can make all kinds of money off of this plant, because from this plant, from the leaves of this plant, twine is made. And this twine is very, very strong and almost unbreakable. Well, they brought it to the United States and put it in rich conditions and everything else. They went to harvest the plant because the plant didn't have to struggle and fight for life. All the leaves were mush. Oh, it still looked pretty, but it didn't serve its purpose. See, the fiber, which the twine was made out of, just became a very soft pulp. That tough quality was missing. So where was the tough quality gained? Where was the strength gained? Was it gained because the plant was in rich soil, or the plant was where it was belonged, where it was planted? We have to bloom where we're planted. I think I just answered a question I've been wrestling with. Anyway, sorry, just boom, one of those things just hit me. We have to bloom where we're planted. That's what we get to do as believers. You get to love people at your job. You get to love the person at the grocery store. You get to be kind to the clerk that's having a really bad day. You get to give that waitress that's worked really hard a little bit of an extra tip, so they feel like a little better about themselves. See, we get to bloom where we're planted. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. God's not looking to blast us with adversity, but adversity happens because life happens. And God uses those adverse times to help us grow and mature and be able to stand in our faith. It's time today as a church, it's time today as Christians. It's time today for everybody that's listening, for everybody that's here, to say, I'm going to be different. I'm going to stand firm in what I know. I'm not going to be impacted by circumstances and situations, but I'm going to keep my focus on the Lord. And yes, there's all kinds of really crappy things going on, pardon my French. There's all kinds of garbage going on in the United States, in the world right now. And if we focus on those, we're going to get so pulled and so distracted that we miss the message. And that message is God's love. Let's pray. Father, I just thank you for grace today. I thank you for your love. I thank you that you continue to reach us even when we fall short, even when we think that we're doing the right thing and we're so far off base that it takes a gentle hand to correct us, Father. I thank you for your love, for just everything that you continue to do for us, how you reach us, Father. And may we be those conduits of mercy and grace to the place we're planted. May we be that in our families. May we be that in the places that we work. May we be that wherever we touch a life, Father. Thank you what you're doing with us, where you're taking us. And I pray that you're just honored and glorified because of all that we say and we do. Father, for the needs that are out there, Father, just may your will and purpose be accomplished in each and every person's life. May you hear positive reports about the steps you take. May grace and truth guide you and keep you steady on your journey. And may the love of God keep you in the sweet spot that every moment brings. Grace first, grace always, family. Live simple. Live practical. Love eternally. I love you guys. Thank you. Amen. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.